Chargers to the left of me, hybrids to the right, and here I am stuck in the middle with tanks. Nothing like a good old Thunderdome objective. The high intensity and adrenaline pumping as you hold your ground and pray to the warden that you brought enough ammunition with you. When I first saw this objective, I was in love with it, and I was very happy to see that this wasn't just a one-time thing. Now, I find that the one later in this rundown was constructed far better, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. No point in talking about that one after all, when there's a chance you might not even survive this one. Hello everyone, Professor Scaler here, and welcome to the alternate R5B3 level guide. As always, we're starting off with your loadout, and today I recommend you bring with you a biotracker, a mine deployer, a burst or a shotgun sentry, and then finally a sniper sentry. And the reason why I recommend the biotracker is that a fair amount of this level will have zones that are completely covered in infectious fog, and in these areas you can expect to see things like strikers and shooters, even some giant strikers and a few scouts here and there. And also for some of these portions we're going to have an air alarm going on in the background, which can make things incredibly awkward to deal with if we don't have a biotracker on the team. As for the mine deployer, this is going to be helping us out a bit during some of the alarms in this level. A lot of different doors we can shut and place mines on to just blow up a lot of enemies all at once. And the beautiful thing with it is even if the mines aren't utilized during a specific alarm, we can always go out, pick them up, and utilize them later. As for that burst or shotgun sentry, we want a close range sentry that is decent at killing enemies all by itself. And I find that the burst and shotgun sentries both are fairly effective in this level if you know how to position them properly. We're going to have a few alarms later down the road which are going to have charger type enemies in them. So personally, I like to lean a little bit more towards the shotgun sentry. Although it's not really in the best place right now, it's fairly decent, but it still gets the job done anyway, which is why I find either of these two sentries is perfectly fine. As for the sniper sentry, the reason why we're bringing this is more so for the secondary objective, as we want a sentry that can hit really hard and is fairly accurate, which is a perfect description of the sniper sentry. If you are doing a main objective only run though, I would say feel free to swap the sniper sentry out for either another burst or shotgun sentry, or maybe even a seafoam launcher. I've done a few runs with seafoam, and while it works, I do feel like double sentries is probably the more effective loadout for this level. Dropping down into level, you'll see that your main objective is to open up the cargo crate by using the unsealer machine, which will always be located inside zone 47. Meanwhile, you and your teammates in that cargo crate will be starting off inside zone 45. And in here, not really a whole lot to take note of. There will be a few regular chargers to deal with, but no resources to collect whatsoever, and that's about it. There is also a terminal, which actually I do recommend you get onto real quick and use it to list the one and only color keycard in the level, and then query it to figure out exactly which zone is located in, as we will be needing it later on. Once you take care of that though, you can just go to the north and into the security door to zone 46 and get ready to deal with that, as it's not going to have an alarm tied to it per se, but it will have an error alarm which will spawn in 6 regular chargers roughly every 2 minutes and 40 seconds. So a lot of time in between the waves, but that doesn't mean we can dilly-dally, as 6 chargers can pretty quickly deplete our resources if we're not careful. So once you and your teammates are ready to go, activate that security door, do the full team scan, deal with the first wave of chargers, then open it up and head straight into zone 46. Now in here there will never be any sleeping enemies, but there will be resources for you to collect, but we don't want to take time and look for them quite yet. Instead, what we're going to want to do is go straight to the eastern side of the zone and make sure we shut the door behind us and get ready to set up for the alarm that's tied to the security door to zone 48. The reason for this being that there are a lot of doors in this zone that could be utilized for this upcoming alarm. And if we go around looking for resources and whatnot, a charger wave might spawn in and they could potentially break down some of our valuable doors. So I find the easiest thing to do is just go right to the alarm and take care of it right off the get-go, as you should have more than enough resources to deal with it right here and now. As for that security door, it is going to have a class 4 alarm tied to it, and as you can see with the map overlay, there are quite a few different locations enemies could possibly spawn at, and a lot of different doors they could go through to get to you and your teammates. So what I recommend you do is just make sure every single one of the doors I have highlighted, you shut them, but you do not need to mine any of them, except for these 3 doors here that lead directly into your room. These doors you are going to want to go on ahead and mine, and then you can just hold on to your sentries until you know which route enemies are coming from, and then you can quickly run over to that door and place down one or both of your sentries to give you a little bit of extra cover fire. Once everything is set up though, you can activate the alarm, get to work on the scans. Once all of them are taken care of, deal with any of the enemies that are still left alive. And before you open up the security door to Zone 48, you can now take time to go throughout all of Zone 46 and look around for those resources, as well as take that cargo crate to the northern end to the security door to Zone 47. As I mentioned earlier, this is where our unsealer machine is going to be. But in order to open it up, we need that color keycard that we queried earlier, which will always be located either in Zone 49 or Zone 50. Inside Zone 48, this is all just one big room. There will be a few regular strikers and shooters in here, as well as a single scout patrolling about, so try to not alert it. And there's also going to be 3 other security doors, one to the north, one to the south, and one to the east. Although that eastern security door is under lockdown for the time being, so really only north and south. Now, as you probably could already guess, one of those security doors will take you to Zone 49. I believe it is the northern one to 49 and the southern one which will take you to Zone 50. Thing is though, those 2 zones are almost completely covered with infectious fog. Thankfully though, there is a fog turbine somewhere in this room. So after you collect all of the enemies, look around for the resources, resupply, and get that fog turbine, then head over to either the northern end or the southern end, depending on which one of the 2 zones you have to go to for your color keycard. As for those 2 zones, they are fairly similar to each other. They both will have a blood door you have to go through in order to get into them. And all you really need to do is just place 1 mine on that blood door, open it up, and quickly climb up that ladder to get out of the infectious fog, and you can just hold out at the top of the room. Thankfully, there is a nice ladder for both of these blood doors, so no matter which one you have to go to, it shouldn't be all that difficult to deal with. And once you have taken care of all the enemies from the blood door, you can then do one of 2 things. You can either all 4 go together as a team into Zone 49 or Zone 50 and traverse through the infectious fog, dealing with the regular enemies and the scout in the zone while looking around for resources and that color keycard. Or you can send 3 people down who will do this while 1 person stays up above inside Zone 48 and holds the fort here. The reason why you might want to do this is because if something goes really horribly wrong down there and everybody ends up dying, you at least have 1 person who's up above out in the infectious fog who can more easily hold out using that ladder funnel as well as a sentry and just deal with anything that comes after them, and then more safely go down and get the teammates up. That, and if you have 1 person up here, there's a chance that the charger wave will spawn off of them further back towards the beginning of the level, which means the people down in the infectious fog don't have to worry about dealing with that charger error alarm. Either way though, people are going to be heading down into Zone 49 or 50 looking around for resources or that color keycard. Once you have it, you're going to want to leave immediately even if you don't have everything else, and then just backtrack your way to the security door to Zone 47. Once you get over there, plug the keycard in and then do the full team scan tied to the door. Then you can open it up, walk inside, and in here there will never be any enemies or resources, but there will be 4 unsealer machines, only 1 of which you can interact with. And once you figure out which one it is, just put the cargo into it, and after the animation finishes, it will cause the charger error alarm to deactivate, so you don't have to worry about that anymore, and will also unlock the security door to Zone 51. And at this point of the level, we can now take things a bit slower and at our own pace. So what I would recommend you do next is go through any of the zones you've already been through and grab any resources you left behind, as I find ammunition and to refill in this level can actually be a little bit tight depending on your playstyle. And once you have all that, you can go to the far eastern side of the level to that security door to Zone 51 and get ready to set up for it, as the security door is now going to have a Class 3 mixed alarm tied to it. And as you can see with this map overlay, there are quite a few different locations that these chargers, yes, chargers during this alarm, could potentially spawn from. Now, you're not going to have to worry about enemies coming from the north and the south, assuming you didn't accidentally open up both of the blood doors, which means one of the 2 directions you could completely disregard. As for setting up for this, I would recommend that every single one of the doors I've highlighted, assuming they're still intact and they haven't been broken down already, go on ahead and shut those and place a mine on every single one of them if you can manage that. And as for your sentries, I would say place the burst or shotgun sentry near the ladder that leads you down to the blood door that you did open up, and then the sniper sentry have it sort of on the southern end of the room facing towards the open security door, so if any enemies coming from the western side, they have to go through the line of fire of that sniper sentry, and a few of them will get picked off by it. And that's really all there is to it. Once you have everything set up, activate the alarm and get to work on the scans. Keep in mind, it is a mixed alarm, which means the final scan will be a sustained scan, so everybody on the team has to group up and be alive for it. And once you have taken care of all the scans, clear out any of the chargers who are still left alive, go back and pick up any of the mines that did not explode, and then you can just continue further into Zone 51. Now, Zone 51 is a fairly big zone, and there's actually a fair amount to take note of when it comes to this place. In this zone, there will be a lot of enemies, regular strikers and shooters, but there are mostly going to be giant strikers. I think about 70% or so of the enemies you find will be giant strikers. And there's also a single scout who will be patrolling about somewhere in the zone. As for the rest of it, about half of the zone is covered in infectious fog, so you are going to need to bring that fog turbine with you. There will also be your very first bulkhead key somewhere in the zone, as well as the bulkhead door control and the doors to the main and secondary objective. These are found down below in the infectious fog portion on the southern end of the zone. So you're just going to take your time. I highly recommend melee as many of those giant strikers as you can, because if you go guns aloud the entire time, you are almost certain to run out of ammunition by the end of it. And just clear every single one of the rooms one by one. Keep an eye for that bulkhead key and all the resources. And once you have everything, you can then go down into the infectious fog, go over to the bulkhead door control, plug your key into it, and do whichever scan it is that you are doing. If you and your teammates are only doing a main objective run, then just jump to the timestamp that you see on screen. There we will talk about the very last security door you have to go through to get to extraction. But everybody else, we're going to be heading over to the security door to zone 388 and get started on our secondary objective. Alrighty, so the secondary objective. Now, before we can even enter into the zone and figure out what the objective is, we actually have to deal with a class 3 mixed alarm that will be tied to the bulkhead door. And as you can see with this map overlay, there's only one possible spawn location for these chargers. However, there are a few different doors they could potentially go through. And since we are utilizing a funnel strategy, I recommend that these 3 doors, go on ahead and shut all of them and place mines on them. And then when it comes to the 2 doors that lead to your room, the eastern door you're going to shut, but the western door you're going to leave open to ensure the enemies funnel in through here. As for your sentries, your burst or shotgun sentry can be positioned near the door, so it'll shoot at enemies as they round the corner. And your sniper sentry can be placed outside, facing probably towards the north, so as enemies are approaching the door, they might get shot at by the sentry a fair amount and actually pick a few of them off. Biotracker Symbiosis will definitely help out quite a bit here. And upon entering into zone 388, you'll see your secondary objective is to find a specific terminal and put a backdoor command into it. That terminal always being located inside zone 389, so the room right over from you. As for 388 itself, there will never be any enemies in here, but there will be some resources for you to collect, and at the far southern end of it, you'll find the security door to zone 389. This door is going to have a class 4 mix alarm tied to it, and as you can probably already guess, this alarm will also spawn in charger type enemies. And as you can see with the map overlay, there's once again only one possible spawn location for enemies, 2 different doors they'll have to go through, or at least one of the 2, so I recommend both of them are shut and mined. And then when it comes to your sentries, you could place them down in the room with you, or you could just simply hold on to them. It's up to you and your teammates. As I said earlier, resources are a little tight in this level, so if you want to conserve a bit of tool refill for later on, you definitely could do that. This alarm overall isn't really all that difficult to deal with. Once it has been taken care of though, you can pack up your sentries and any mines that did not go off, and then head into 389 itself. And zone 389, there's no enemies in here you're going to have to deal with immediately, but there are a ton of resources for you to collect. Although the bottom portion of the room is covered in infectious fog, so you're going to want to bring that fog turbine with you. And in the middle of the room, you'll be able to find that terminal. And once you put that command into the terminal, it will initiate a full team scan. And once the full team scan is finished, it's going to cause a full zone alarm to initiate, and the 3 blood doors connected to your area will open up. So before we do that, we're definitely going to want to set up quite a bit, as these blood doors are special. They actually don't spawn in any enemies, but there are a fair amount of enemies sleeping behind them, which will automatically wake up. When it comes to the blood door to the west, it's going to be having about 6 or 7 hybrids behind it. The blood door to the east is going to have about 6 or 7 giant chargers behind it, and the blood door down to the south is going to have 2 giant chargers as well as a tank inside of there, and like I said, all of these enemies are going to wake up. Now, these enemies have their own different threats. The giant chargers are going to try to rush you down and just clobber you into submission. So I would recommend you place a lot of mines on the eastern side of the room, so as enemies try to come through that area, they're going to blow up to the mines, which will stagger them and give you a little bit of an easier time to shoot them and deal with them before they could get too close to you. As for those hybrids, mines can help out a little bit over there, but the thing is, they're not going to rush you down like the giant chargers do. Instead, they're going to keep their distance and try to just pelt you down with their ranged projectiles, which is why I recommend if you have somebody on the team with a high damage weapon like a choke mod or burst cannon or especially a sniper rifle, they focus on that half of the room, and also place down your sniper sentry over on that half so it'll shoot at the hybrids and help you pick them off. As for the enemies down to the south, not really any point mining this direction, as the tank could come out first, and if he does, the mines aren't going to really do a whole lot. And even then, you don't have to worry about him too much, as he doesn't really rush up onto your central platform. The 2 giant chargers are a little bit more of an issue though, so I would say make sure you set up your mines, again, most of them being towards the eastern side, but you could do a few to the west, or maybe even 1 or 2 to the south if you have an abundance of them. Place your sniper sentry and maybe even your other sentry facing towards the hybrid side, so the west if you have a ton of leftover sentry ammo, And then when it comes to you and your teammates, I would say one person could probably focus on the 2 giant chargers coming from the south. One person could be focusing on the hybrids to the west, one person could be focusing on the giant chargers to the east, and then the 4th person on your team could just simply help out either the western side or the eastern side, depending on sort of what weapons you brought in with you and which side you think is going to need more assistance. Overall, the difficulty of this objective is really just right off the get-go as a bunch of enemies are rushing you down, but if you can get rid of all those giant chargers and get rid of the hybrids, you really won't have all that much difficulty trying to deal with the tank afterwards. And once you deal with all the initial enemies, all that's left to do is just sort of chill here and wait for a little while, as the scan's going to take a while to complete, and as the scan is gaining progress, a 2nd and eventually a 3rd tank are also going to spawn in. So you will have to deal with 3 of them in total. But as long as you haven't been going guns crazy and blasting through every single enemy in the level, you should have enough resources to deal with every single one of these enemies. But once everything is dead and the full zone alarm is completed, your secondary objective is done. There's not really anything left to do but go into the southern room into zone 391, where your 2nd bulkhead key will be waiting for you, and then just simply backtrack to the bulkhead door control. There will never be any resources in any of these 3 blood door areas that open up. There might be a few artifacts, so if you want to look around, go on ahead. Just be a little bit cautious, as the hybrid zone is actually a respawn zone, so if you all go too far away from it or too many rooms away from it, the hybrids will come back, although they do not automatically wake up, thankfully. But yeah, that's all there is to it. So once you've gotten everything you need, you can backtrack all the way into zone 51, plug your bulkhead key into the door control to unlock the security door to zone 52, and then we could just head over there and get on with the rest of our main objective. Okay, one more alarm door and we are home free. So all that's left to do is deal with the class 4 mixed alarm that's tied to the security door to zone 52. And as you can see with the map overlay, once again, we are dealing with charger type enemies, and there are a few different locations they could possibly spawn from. So every single door I have highlighted, these you're going to want to shut, but you do not need to mine or seafoam any of them whatsoever. This door down here though, this one is an exception. You're going to be leaving this door open, as we want all the enemies during this alarm, or at least 90% of them, to funnel in through here. So they're all coming from one general direction and not from up above and down below. As for your sentries, the burst or shotgun sentry could be positioned right outside the open door facing towards the stairs, as enemies will slow down quite a bit as they're coming up them. And your sniper sentry could be positioned somewhere near the bottom of the stairs facing northern into the room. That way any of the enemies who are coming from the northern half have to go through the line of fire of that sniper sentry, and a few of them will get picked off before they get close to you. Again, Biotracker Symbiosis will help out in making that sniper sentry more effective. Once you're good to go though, activate the alarm, get to work on the scans. Be a bit cautious, as this alarm likes to troll you, as the scans will like to go all the way up to the top of the room, then all the way back down, then maybe all the way back up again, and so forth. But once you finish every single one of the scans, you're going to want to immediately open up the security door to zone 52. Because even though the alarm door itself has been deactivated, an extraction alarm will be initiated almost immediately upon finishing every single one of the scans. And this extraction alarm is going to be spawning in even more chargers. So open up that door, hold your ground a little bit as it's opening, and once it's fully up, you can then pick up the cargo and just make your way into zone 52, get onto that extraction scan, and hold out there for a little bit. And your average run, you're going to be pretty close on resources here. A lot of my runs, I typically don't have all that much ammunition or sentry ammo left, but there is a chance you might still just have enough to hold out for the last few seconds and just hold your ground. And once you get that scan all the way to 100%, you are done and you have completed alternate R5B3. And that's all there is to it. Alternate R5B3 was a memorable level for me, as the concept of a Thunderdome objective was quite thrilling the first time I saw it. Sadly though, I can't deny that the alternate version didn't really do this level justice. Everything along the main objective route is very similar to how I remember it being, but the changes to the secondary objective borderline ruined the experience in my opinion. There's the initial rush of adrenaline as everything comes after you all at once, but that's about it. Most of that scan is just me sitting there AFK waiting for the next tank to spawn in, and then when it does spawn in, it doesn't take all that long for me to finish it off, and then I'm just twiddling my thumbs as I wait for the third and final tank, which isn't quite as enjoyable as I remember it being back in the original. There have been very few major changes in these alternate rundowns that I greatly disliked, but unfortunately, this is definitely one of them. As always though, thank you for watching this video all the way to the very end. I do hope that it was able to provide you with some assistance in beating this level. If you have any tips or tricks for this level that you want to share, any questions from me, or you just have something in general that you would like to say, please do let me know down in the comments. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more from me, and if you want to join my lovely community, there's a link to my Discord down in the description, as well as some other links you might be interested in. Among those links being one to the official GTFO merch store, which, as always, I highly recommend you check out if you're a fellow GTFO enthusiast and you're looking to pick up some sweet merch. Until next time, we're about to see another level concept that was introduced with the original Rundown 5, one that I also enjoyed quite a bit, and perhaps you will as well. And hopefully, I'll see all you wonderful people in the next video.